Our first question comes from a man by the name of Brian. He asks, what are we going to do about the damn Tim Hortons lineup going on to Thickwood Boulevard? Down to 2 lanes every morning, and I can't even get out of the shell. Gene, what do you propose with the Tim Hortons lineup?
That's a tough question, apparently, that hasn't been solved for quite a few years, Nolan. Propose to do, I would say some enforcement is required, and whether that's RCMP or bylaw, I can't answer to that. But enforcement is definitely required. We got to keep those lineups off of the city streets. We got to keep those lineups away from congesting our traffic any further. We all know the traffic issues are quite a problem and have been for quite a few years, and we need to look at solving those traffic issues.
Okay, I see probably Tim Hortons is making a ridiculous amount of profit on the 2 sites that they have. They should have at least 4 to service this market, and people should not be driving all over town just to get a cup of coffee. Let's make the room available and let the people that are using the product pay the bill, get on it.
Melissa?
Thank you. I think we need to end the complacency. The laws exist to prevent it, but people will take the liberties as long as they're allowed to. And when I say that, enforcement is a big part of it, but I also recognize that sometimes when it's a habit-forming objective that people say, well, the guy before me did it, so why shouldn't I? I'd really like to see some signage where you have a no litter sign that says tin can with a red line through it. I think we need to have blocking of traffic with a red line through it as well.
Thank you. All right. Our next question goes to Jim. It comes from Kathleen. It's a rather lengthy question, so listen closely. With the amount of children in this town that are in ringette, hockey, figure skating, and such, would it not be more plausible to build more arenas around town for them all to have proper amount of ice time than to build one giant arena in the downtown core?
I'm a big enthusiast about pickup games and off-team games. The object is to get as much ice time for as many kids as you can, or in the case of a baseball diamond, if there's somebody missing from a team, they should have a few minutes to pick up another player. People should be able to go down with their glove and jump into a game or pick up a scrub game if there's an open diamond or an open piece of skating rink. Let's not wait for team events, and let's get as many of those square feet of recreational space being used all the time.
Melissa?
Thank you. And we've got One Beacon Hill Arena. We've got, well, when we complete the sport and entertainment complex, which is about more than just an ice surface, granted, you'll have 3 downtown, and you've only got 1 in Thickwood Timberlea. Inevitably, the new Northside Recreation Center needs to increase the supply of ice surface in that area because of the population that's there. But continual monitoring and ensuring that we've got the right ratio of population is going to be an imperative. We are behind, in my opinion. My son's a hockey player. I conspire.
Gene?
Nolan, can I ask you just it was a lengthy question. Can I have a little more time?
Yeah. With the amount of children in this town that are in ringette, hockey, figure skating, and such, would it not be more plausible to build more arenas around town for them all to have the proper amount of ice time than to build one giant arena in the downtown core?
I would say I would agree with that. I think more ice surfaces, whether it be an arena versus an ice rink, I would say that's probably more plausible and more realistic. We're so spread out that I don't think we need to concentrate our ice surfaces into one arena, adding to further congestion.
With the curbside recycling program in full swing, will the shopping bag bylaw be reviewed, given that we can now put plastic bags in the recycle bin? Should this bylaw be overturned because the carbon footprint for cloth bags is much higher than plastic? That question comes from Kenneth.
Thank you, and it's not that I disagree with Kenneth's point at all. I think that it is problematic when we've got more difficult to decompose bags that are out there. But no, I can't imagine that we'll be looking at a review of the bylaw, and here's sort of what's happened with it. People have adapted, inevitably. We've got enough businesses that are out there that are in compliance with it, but the real thing that happened is it started to turn the environmental story about our community quite considerably. And so the argument that I use when I'm queried about, the environment in Fort McMurray-Wood, Buffalo, I say, listen, it's about all of our individual actions. And when you look at the change that came about because of the plastic bag ban, I don't believe that that's ever going to change the world in terms of our carbon footprint, but the individual efforts that cumulatively add up certainly do, and it's the people in this community who took a stand and did just that.
Gene?
Well, I would agree that it definitely paints us with a nicer picture that for Fort McMurray and the region, that we have this bylaw in place and we're looking at these green initiatives. The net effect that I see that works for me is I always forget my bags at home. I always forget them in my vehicle. So what I'm doing is I'm buying new bags all the time, constantly buying bags. Now I got all these bags around my house, and I end up throwing those into the dump. Or preferably what I do now is I just take them to my business and give them out, and instead of making people buy more bags, I just give them to people.
Jim?
Wow, I'm there with both of the above. The amount of waste of the non-disposable bags is pretty frightening in this town. And as one who does plenty of recycling, the inspiration for that is that when you pay a deposit on a tin can or a bottle, if you don't cash it in and nobody else reclaims your deposit, it goes to the hands and pockets of the brewery or the pop company. And the amount of waste that people are doing here is pretty frightening when they don't have any options.
All right. So there's our first round of questioning. What we're going to do is we're going to do a snake, like when I do fantasy hockey pools, it's a snake draft. So whoever went first in the first round goes last in the next round, and vice versa. So I'm going to stick with Melissa on this one.
Who's after Melissa?
We'll go with Jim this time. Okay. My fiance and I are tired of driving Highway 63 to Edmonton for goods. What do you believe is the best way to obtain large format retailers? That question is from Jeffrey.
Thank you. Power Mall, bottom of North Parsons. We've got an interchange that needs to be constructed there. The area at the bottom of that interchange going towards the river. We are negotiating as hard as we can with the provincial government for all matters, but that one is top priority on my list.
Jim.
Yeah, that Parsons Creek interchange, I'd like to see the planning get on ahead, get that cut in the escarpment to put the road in, if it's within the venue of the municipality, to establish a level crossing there, just like every other pioneer access road, and get going on the plan for the big box stores, and if there's going to be earth assembled for the interchange, let's get on it and get started now.
And this is 30 seconds?
30 seconds.
I believe that we need to refocus some of our efforts that we have been using on this city center redevelopment and look at possibly putting another route through town, which would open up areas that we could put more of these shopping centers, a big retail section, residential to complement that. I believe there's too much focus on redevelopment of existing structures, businesses, and residential, and we should look at new. We should look at different routes to curb our congestion issues and look after these larger retailers.
Thank you. Next question is for Jim. My question is concerning rental suites. I am a full-time resident and single. I cannot afford to obtain a mortgage in Fort McMurray right now, nor do I think I wish to. I do, however, want to move out of a bedroom and have my own place. I notice that many landlords are charging exorbitant rents for a suite that does not even have a stove. Supplying a tenant with a hot plate and convection oven is wholly inadequate. Is this an issue the candidate is willing to tackle?
Oh, you bet I am. And I wanted to thank all the people that have been putting these questions. Obviously, there's a big difference between retaining market value on single-family dwellings that somebody has their whole life bound up in trying to make $800,000 or $900,000 mortgage come together. At the same time, a lot of these apartment buildings downtown pay for themselves. The money that was originally put into them is paid out in a year. Nice to take advantage of the marketplace, but people are suffering with this kind of unregulated rental situation.
Gene?
I need to clarify the question because listening to the responses, sometimes I get.
Sure, no problem. Let me find it here. Okay. My question is concerning rental suites. I'm a full-time resident and single. I cannot afford to obtain a mortgage in Fort McMurray right now, nor do I think I wish to. I do, however, want to move out of a bedroom and have my own place. I notice many landlords are charging exorbitant rents for a suite that does not even have a stove. Supplying a tenant with a hot plate and convection oven is wholly inadequate. Is this an issue the candidate is willing to tackle?
Well, that most definitely is an issue I'm willing to tackle, and a lot of the stuff that I've been bringing forward and talking about addresses a lot of these issues. And if we refocus on our needs rather than our wants, such as these things downtown and the waterfront program, if we start putting that capital back into looking for alternative routes, especially now that we got a bunch of land that we can work with, we look at alternate routes through the community. We'll be addressing these residential issues. We'll be addressing these commercial opportunities. We'll be addressing the issue with transportation. And quite frankly, I don't know if we've done a good job in that lately.
Melissa?
Thanks. I take the exact opposite view of Gene's. The access to new areas is going to be highly expensive to do, but when we look at our city centre redevelopment, they're assets the municipality is responsible for. We call them catalyst projects. When they come into place, they're also an attractive for redeveloping in the other private sector area. Private sector is going to serve market needs, and if the market needs office space, it shall come into play. If the market needs housing, which we inevitably know that it does, then they'll create that as well. So the density form is going to have an effect on the pricing affordability. And when you look at the opportunity then to see a high density downtown, you're going to see affordable condo ownership as well.
All right.
Let me clarify. When you hold your finger up, does that mean you got 10 seconds?
Yeah, just to finish your thought.
Oh, okay.
Finish your thought.
Okay.
Gene, this one is for you.
Okay. Even sir, stand over here and face that.
You don't necessarily have to face the camera, guys. You don't have to.
We're doing
Anyway.
We're doing
Yeah, you guys are doing just fine. All right. How do you plan on increasing transparency and communication from the RMWB for the entire community?
For the entire community, I believe transparency and did you say accountability? Is that what you said?
Transparency and communication.
And communication. It seems to be pretty tough right now, through my experiences, trying to get answers and things through the regional municipality, Wood Buffalo. I believe it's gonna start at the ground. We got to have an open door policy of some sort, including going to these council meetings, including getting the information what's on the agenda for the council meetings, being able to present to the council meetings, to the councillors at the meeting. Right now, it seems to be very difficult to get that process through. I think we need to do exactly that. Engage the public more. Go through some town hall meetings. Go out to our regions. Find out what their issues are. As a council, I think our council should hold meetings in those regions. We're a municipality that has needs for in the outlying communities, and not just here in Fort McMurray. So we got to, in my opinion, it wouldn't hurt us to go and have a council meeting in those rural communities and deal with those rural issues at those council meetings as well.
Listen.
Experience showing we've actually tried to do just that, and unfortunately when we go into rural communities we find it far less effective to hold a meeting that has far less relevancy, I guess, to the citizens there than being able to go in and engage on a social basis. I would say that there's always room for continuous improvement in terms of our communications and the perception about a lack of transparency. We'll comply with the MGA, but if we are able to make improvements, we absolutely will. I think social media is one of those great ways of extending our reach, but we still have to request that the citizens themselves come to the table and participate.
Jim. Go into the mic, Jim.
Yep. Oh, out of there. Time I looked at the camera too. Anyway, I've been through quite a few different processes of input. The most accessible input point is in City Council. They're always willing to endure my observations on whatever they've got on the agenda. The newspaper could be carrying a focus page in, say, a Thursday afternoon that would give a heads up on announcements within the municipality. There have been some meetings that I've been attending that have been extremely productive, and they should be fast in the process.
Okay. Good job on round two, everyone. Continuing with the snake. the snaking of the questions. So it'll be Gene first this time. This one comes to us from Twitter. With an abundance of land by United Furniture and Sawridge, what are your ideas for commercial development in Gregoire?
My ideas for commercial development in Gregoire, that's a good question. I never really thought of it because that's privately held land. The opportunities for the regional municipality to get involved in, if you want to say buy that land and make it available, I have put no thought to. The opportunities, of course, would be greater to service highway traffic and put highway traffic type commercial opportunities there. And also, obviously, it wouldn't make sense to build some offices in that location because you want to be in an area that's closer to. You got me on that question, though.
Jim.
Well, I'm relatively thrilled with the options of that have been already opened up in Gregoire area by this big development on the west side of the highway. I'd like to see some of the technology that's like head smashed in Buffalo Jump or the Edmonton Convention Center applied to that south facing slope to Horse River and or is it the Hangstone there? I think it is the Hangstone. And that I'm believing that that whole area will infill because it's got all the utilities, all of the advantages of energy coming in, and it should just go ahead fast. Thank you.
Melissa.
Thank you. We certainly deal with land zoning. Even on these existing privately held properties, they're zoned for commercial. I think C4 is one of the designations at the United intersection. But Jim is right. When we did the rezoning for the gateway coming into our community, that is going to give us the best opportunities. So the old Quarry Ridge Golf Course will be converted into a mixture of housing and commercial interests there as well. And it'll look more like an inviting city when it comes in based on the zoning that we've put in place. So it's just a matter of time before the private sector comes through and gives us what we need.
All right, Jim, next question is for you. Some residential roads are impassable. Any thoughts on new regulations for road widths in future residential developments to combat the on-street parking lunacy?
That's something that's come up with the basement suite business and the requirement of people to bring people in, other people, strangers, into their home in order to make the payments on their mortgage. And I did a little look at the possibility of having an elevated front lawn with parkade underneath it. I don't think that people should be buying brand new homes with a lawn installed and immediately want the lawn removed so that they can put a roundabout road behind their house so they can access the backyard for parking. Yes, we need some study done on this, and the public should be involved in airing of all the issues and putting together of the options that will lead to a successful, prosperous solution to whatever problems we have.
Thanks. And it has been a standing problem with our rapid increase in popularity of having rooms rented in basement suites. So many adults in the same home results in many vehicles. So unfortunately, I have an anticipation that no matter what kind of brilliant solutions look to come into place, we're not going to be able to remedy the situation until we have more affordable housing as we go into the communities. People who are sharing homes now may opt into ones that are more appropriate. In the meantime, an absolute necessity that we look at our parking standards that enable better access to it, I suppose, with on-street permitting perhaps, but also the necessity of protecting the children on the streets and the workers that are there to pick up those recyclable cans as well. There's a big piece of work that's still required.
Thank you. Gene?
I definitely would support looking at our designs and our bylaws as far as how we construct new communities. It's going to be a little too late to go back to what's already been done, and we're going to have to find out solutions to that. But moving forward, if we know that we're going to have still congestion for quite a few years, we got to plan our communities accordingly. So that way, in the wintertime, you don't only have one lane that's rutted 2 feet deep and you can't get out of those ruts if there's another car coming. I see those issues. I live these issues. I live here too. So at the end of the day, it's about, if we know we don't have the infrastructure, we know the housing isn't going to be built in time, we got to look at making our new communities provide enough parking, enough space on the streets for cars to pass.
Thank you. All right. Melissa, what about our outdated bus system, especially now with this taxi cab strike going on? Should it start earlier and finish later?
Love the idea of increasing service capacity in the transit system. We have got a new contract provider that's trying to get us, I think, up to a more updated level in terms of even the global positioning, so that you know where your buses are and how long you're going to be waiting outside. We've committed to the shelter structures that are intended to serve multi-populations. So you've got folks going to work on their buses, you've got the transit, you've got school buses. Having these shared assets are going to be important for that, the comfort and availability to the ridership. But you're right, it's just about having routes where people need them, when they need them, and as effectively as we can make that.
Jim?
The being able to go out to the bus stop and expect to have a bus come by without knowing the schedule is almost essential to the system working right. And I'm looking forward to people being able to just access a bus as if they had a vehicle in a parkade somewhere, but at the time they would have walked up to a parkade, they can also catch a bus and be off and home. The heated bus shelters could probably do with an outside bench and that kind of thing, so that people have some options when they arrive there.
Thank you. Gene?
One more time, Nolan. Do you mind?
Yeah, no problem. What about our outdated bus system, especially now with this taxi cab strike going on? Should it start earlier and finish later?
Well, I think there's a great initiative that has already been put forward to update our bus system, and I mean that's very evident if you just drive around and see all these new bus shelters and the new buses. Having them start and finish later, yeah, we could look at that, but I think at the underlying, we should look at the underlying issues and then fix those first, which is a bylaw was passed in March that's also going to be revisited here right away. And in my opinion, if the bylaw was thought out and due process was followed, we wouldn't be in this position we are today.
All right. One last question. Each of you get a minute to respond to this. I'm going to start with Melissa because we went the other way for the first round. So we'll start with Melissa.
So we got three more questions?
You get one.
Okay.
And then you each answer this question.
And this is it?
This is it.
Okay.
This is kind of like a closing statement, but it was a question that came in and I liked it.
Okay.
So we're going with it. This
Sure.
is our...
So who's
we'll start with Melissa,
and then Jim?
Jim, and then you.
Sure.
1 minute to respond. What does your McMurray look like in 5 years, and what's your plan to achieve that vision?
Well, thank you. I've got a few planks in my platform. I've got the acquisition of land and then ensuring that we develop it stably, but we also are more inclusive, increase the municipal reserve by 10% more so that we can add more amenities that don't require nonprofit organizations in particular to pay a price on the land, yet they can still develop. I've got untangling traffic as one of the key elements, and I think we need to shift from the decision-making in Edmonton to decision-making in the community without carrying the burden of that expense for the provincial work. And then finally, anything that's going to affect the quality of life needs to measure up against whether I think it's going to be an improvement or not. So I'm very open to a number of initiatives, but in 5 years from now we'll have a tangible operating zero-waste system that we will be able to brag about endlessly in terms of our impacts as a region.
Jim, get in front, make sure you get right. You want to adjust the mic there for a second?
Yeah.
Okay.
Give me just a sec. Good job.
Sure. Thanks.
I'm definitely using this part.
Super.
Yeah.
Okay. The future, I think, has to do with infrastructure. The real business of Fort McMurray is, in fact, the future of Canada, the future of these resources that we're developing here, and their importance to the Canadian North and generations yet unborn. And That's what I'm seeing. I'm wanting to see people discuss their issues, figure out ways around if there's things to be gotten around, make things work, do it the Canadian way. Nobody gets hurt, everybody wins. Let's get them meetings going and get that infrastructure in there, prioritize where we're going and how we're going to get there. Thank you.
Oh,
And Gene.
We got 1 minute.
Yep.
My 5-year outlook forecast. Number one, transportation issues getting solved, but it won't be, or at least the mechanisms in place for those transportation issues. I see our long-term care facilities being complete and people living in them. I see aging in place happening for the old age that want to continue living together. I see more business opportunities southbound as well as northbound. I see a waterfront that is accessible to everybody in the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo, not just developers or the people that can afford to buy on those developments. I see water and sewer in our rural areas as a major need, and preferably I'd like to see it all complete in 5 years. I see I could go on and on with other little issues, but I just see a benefit. I want to see everybody in the regional municipality getting what they need out of it and start focusing on that and not necessarily the wants of the community.
Thank you, each of you. That was fantastic. That's never been done on this station before.
Is that right?
Yes. So
Thanks very
thank you
much,
very
Ross.
much for participating.
Thanks very much,
and
Aaron.
agreeing.